Hello, today I'd like to talk about the aftermath of how you change emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically on a cellular level when you've been abused by a narcissist. And of course, the abuse doesn't come, on a second date. They give you red flags along the way, and then you have the idealization phase, right? The honeymoon phase, where they make you feel like the most special person in the world. And you could do no wrong. They love everything that you love. They're pretty much your so-called twin flame, which is probably one of the worst concepts in the world. And they thrive off of that concept because they know everybody's looking for their twin flame or soulmate, and then after a certain point where the excitement for them is over and they start getting tired of wearing that mask within the relationship, that's when the horror starts to begin, because the mask falls off and you get to see them for who they really are. And then what happens naturally within this relationship? They start to devalue you by putting you down, telling you you're not good enough, you're too sensitive, you don't care about anybody but yourself. And then they start to gaslight you. Also, they start to seek out a new source of fuel or supply for their sense of self that doesn't exist. They need a reflection from somebody. And if they've gotten bored with you, they need somebody new to do that with, even though it's still work on their part. Once they get that positive supply, they feel fulfilled. But then on the other end, you're the one who's their main source of supply that starts to get the abuse. So what are things that you don't notice? When they start to put you down little by little, it's like, oh wow, I didn't know I'm not good enough. I didn't know I'm, too selfish or too sensitive. It's like, oh wow, I didn't know all these things. And they're pointing all these things out to you, which is really coming from a place of projection. And through this, you start to get really confused about who you are. You start to just think where you're like, okay, why am I such a bad person all of a sudden? I was so amazing, so great, I was put on a pedestal. And now all of a sudden I've fallen off that pedestal. So these are like subtle ways where they start to really manipulate your feelings, how you function mentally, physically, and how you identify, or how you used to identify with who you were in the beginning of the relationship. This starts to put you into a state of confusion, anxiety, walking on eggshells, walking in a place where there's landmines all over. And then from here, you start to lose your sense of self, because now they have you under full control. And as they have you under control, they constantly manipulate you and put you down and keep you in a high state of confusion and anxiety. In turn, you have an identity crisis. You lose yourself within this toxic relationship. You become someone else as they have in order to please them, which is impossible. At this point, they have full control over your mind and your emotions. And then from here, they have full control over you in a way where you're almost setting up your whole well-being in life to please them, to prove your worthiness and your love from them, to get your love again from them, which never existed. And then from here, you're in this fog and you don't know what happened and where things went wrong and what you did and how could things change so quickly. And, man, what did I do? What did I do? What did I say? I have no clue. And then when they're pretty much verbally abusing you and gaslighting you, they'll even tell you stuff like, when you go, why are you so angry at me? You know what you did. It's like, well, what did I do? You should know. You're the one who did it. And then you're like, because there is no answer. It's all projection from them. And remember, they don't love themselves. They're in this place where they sit in the darkness. They feel this void. They have no sense of self. So you were their sense of self. But then as that mask starts to fall off, they get tired of the act. They get tired of mirroring you. They get tired of the love bombing, because they got you now. Now there's no more work to be done. Now it's your turn. And that's one thing you have to realize. It's your turn. Now you have to do all the work from here on in to keep them, even though they're liars and cheaters and manipulators and con artists. It doesn't matter. Now it's your job. So, you keep constantly thinking about the golden stage or the love bombing stage or the idealization phase, and you want that person back, but that person never existed. And now within this state of constant fear of upsetting them, you're in a state of high alert and anxiety. And in this place, you lose your sense of self trying to please them. You start to lose your identity. Why? You don't see your friends like you used to. You don't do the things you used to do because you're spending all your time with them now. And then within this, you start to lose contact with other people. Friends, co-workers, people that you do certain hobbies with, and next thing you know, you've been isolated. But you've allowed it by not having strong boundaries. But they know that because their whole goal is to break through your boundaries. And then as you start to please them, you start to contribute more and more of your free time with them, where you start to shut out everybody. And then in the beginning, as people warn you, you shun them. Oh, you don't know how they are. How dare you talk about my boyfriend or girlfriend like that, or husband or wife like that? And then you start to distance yourself from people because you're protecting your narcissist. And now you're in a place where they have control over everything. Your life, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you think and feel about yourself, which is the worst thing, what gives them the most control and power. How you react to them. All these things are in full control of. So within this, they have control over your emotions and your mental state, which is such a powerful thing. Once you give anybody that type of power, you're in trouble. Okay. Also, you've lost your identity because your whole identity now wraps around and is intertwined with them, and their whole goal is to get supply and residual benefits from you. And if they don't feel like they're getting that anymore, they're going to go somewhere else, whether it's to your face that they're cheating and they don't care, or behind your back, which is majority of the time. They create a big following of people. And where's the easiest place to do that? The internet, right? Online dating sites. They could be on multiple online dating sites. They could be on Instagram. They could be on Facebook. They could be in all these places looking for their next source or getting it while they're with you. Because most of the time, they don't go to another person out of nowhere. They seek that person while they have their main supply. And then in this type of unstable environment for you, you start to really lose yourself because you're like, who am I? Why did this person love me and now they don't? Why do I feel so unlovable and unwanted and unworthy? Because covertly they've changed pretty much, they rewired your brain. They rewired your emotions. They rewired the way you interact with them, yourself, and others. So now, when it finally gets to a point where they ghost you, leave you, or discard you, you feel like this lost soul. You feel a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, unworthiness, depression, panic attacks, all these things. And you're like, man, I never felt like this before. How the hell do I feel like this? And why? Because they rewired your brain and your body and how it responds to things. Because emotions come from everywhere. They're not just here, of course, right? If it's just from here, then you're just a narcissist. Because their emotions on how they love you and they treat you is coming from a place of cognitive place, not from their heart. Because that place doesn't exist. You know, they might think it does, but it doesn't. So within this new alternative reality that you live in, you just feel like nothing. You're so depressed, you're so down, and it's like you go, who am I? I have no sense of who I am anymore. Because when you met the narcissist, you did have that. And that's what they were attracted to, who you were, because they can never be that. But then as they start to turn the tables on you, and you start to live in a way where you're trying to please them all the time, because you don't want to be devalued, you don't want to be abused verbally or physically, you don't want to be told you're not good enough, or you don't do this right, or you don't do that right, you're good for two things, no good and good for nothing. And next thing you know, you're changing everything you are and who you are to please them. So then when they leave you, of course you feel that you want them back, because they were the only person that gave you some sense of self with their breadcrumbing. You know, they gave you a little bit of love, they treated you like crap. They treated you well for a day, they treated you crappy for a couple months. You know, and then you're looking for this, and then you start to idealize the honeymoon stage, you know, where it's like, oh, they treated you this way, but those days are over. They might treat you like that again when they've cheated on you or done something wrong, even if you don't know, to just make sure they keep you around long enough. You know, so when you're their main source of supply, you've lost yourself within their alternate universe, alternate reality. And then when they finally leave you and discard you, now you feel like you have no sense of who you are. You lost your identity, and your emotions are all over the place because you're questioning your reality, you're questioning who you are. And this is the power that they have when they start to really manipulate you. So when it all ends and then they discard you, and you're brave and smart enough to go no contact, you stay no contact. Because if you don't, eventually they will come back, especially when you're easy prey for them. Because if things don't work out with the next one, you're always a backup till they find the next one. And this is how it just continues to go. So when the relationship is ended, it doesn't matter who ended it, you go no contact and you stay like that forever. I know in the beginning when you do it, you're worried about, oh, how do they love me? Are they posting on the internet, on Instagram, on Facebook about me? Do they miss me? And let me just keep my channels open, so if they come around and they change, they'll come back to me because I miss and love them so much, and I have hope. You know, that hope will destroy you, because as long as you leave the channels open for them, they will come back eventually. If they don't, they don't. And that's probably the biggest blessing in disguise. But if they do, and you don't have them in a place of no contact, they will do the same thing over, but worse now, because they don't have to do the whole love bombing phase and all this stuff, because they know they have you wrapped around their finger. So I know it's hard to go no contact. I know it's hard to go through everything to come to that radical realization that this has been the toxic relationship, you've been manipulated, and it's over with. But you have to be strong enough to hold your ground and not let them back in. And this is the most painful part, because when you're alone, what do? You ruminate, you question yourself, what did I do, what didn't I do? You know, and this is the hardest part. And you might not have any support system, because the people that did care about you, you got rid of for the narcissist. And that's okay, because you're not one. So you call these people and you say, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing, you were right, or whatever it is. And it's like, I need you right now. If you're really my friend or my brother or my sister or a loved one, I need you now more than ever. And if they're there for you, they are truly your friend. You know, if they're your family member, they really do care about you. Because when you do love somebody, You give them the space that they need, but when they need you, you're there for them. So now at this time when you got no contact and you still have all these emotional roller coasters going on, the thing you don't do is you don't try to find that person. You don't stalk their social media. You don't try to see if you could see who, through friends, who they're dating, who they're not dating and stuff. All these things you don't want to do. And you got to remember too, the narcissist also might have turned people against you once it ended, telling your family or your friends or your coworkers that you're the bad one, that you cheated. So they create an army of flying monkeys during their smear campaign. You have to be strong enough to say, okay, that's what they said, but that doesn't apply to me. And you got to do your thing. So you find the people that you really know and truly know you and care about you and love you, and you confide in them for help. Also, checking out some videos with some doctors, not narcissists. There's only one narcissist I would recommend to watch, who is a psychologist, and that's Dr. Sam Vaknin. He has a YouTube channel. But I would definitely check out Dr. Ramani, Ramani. She's amazing. The thing you don't want to do is keep opening up your wounds by following the narcissist, the self-aware narcissist online, because they haven't changed. They just found a way to make money off of your suffering. So doing that, reading some good books, self-help books, books about attachment, about codependency, because if you didn't have it, you do now because of what you went through. And realizing that is okay, because there's no shame or guilt in it, because this is how you can heal and eventually move on. So during this time also, try to go to either a group therapy or see a therapist, because this is what's going to help you the most. Don't sit there alone and depressed waiting for your narcissist to come back. This is the worst thing you could do. Once you know who they are and what they've done, you don't give them a second chance. You don't give them the benefit of the doubt. You can't. Your life depends on it. So from here, once you go no contact, sometimes people have to move to a different state. You have to change your number. You have to do all these things. That's okay. This is all part of the process. It's painful, yes, and it hurts. But this is what you have to do to finally get back the life that you deserve, because you will never have a happy life with these people. Never. Because everything that you do is meant to serve them in their eyes. It'll never be the other way around. The only time you got the good part of them, not the goodness of them, the good part of them was when the love bombing phase, when they're idealizing in you and mirroring you. So even who you fell in love with was not who they are. It was a reflection of who you are, because they do this to everybody. It's amazing. Anybody that they're with, they love the same thing. They're into the same thing. They hate the same thing. They're into the same politics, all this stuff. So you got to realize that this person you were not special to them, unfortunately. And that's hard to hear. You were not special to them. They might say it in the beginning because that's how they feel about everybody, but you were not special to them. And you have to love yourself enough to let go and move on. And then through time and therapy, you'll go through roller coasters of emotions, but eventually you'll come back to that sense of self and who you are, and your identity will come back to you. You won't feel the need for them because you'll remember who you are. You'll start to be more of who you are again. And that helps by you doing the things that you love, the things that you stop doing, the people you stop talking to because of them. All these things will start to come back, and then once you do heal and move on, you'll always look back at this time and go, wow, I can't believe I let somebody have so much control over me, where I lost my sense of self and I couldn't even function emotionally, mentally. I was just walking around in a fog, and once you have that epiphany, you'll never allow it to happen again, because you'll know all the warning signs. You'll see the red flags, and you won't give somebody the benefit of the doubt, because your twin flame and your soulmate does not exist in this alternate universe.